Greetings, ladies and gentlemen of the internet, Jan Michael here. Now, before we begin the review, you might be wondering to yourself, what the fuck is a Gachiakuta? Well, I looked it up and I found out that gachi means serious or real, while akuta means like garbage or trash. So I like to think of this show as some serious garbage. But no matter how you mix those things up, we gotta take a look and see if this is a show that is one man's treasure to another man's garbage, or if this is just some straight up trash. Let's hold our nose, jump in, and find out. Set in a world where a floating city dumps all of their trash to the surface world below, a boy named Rudo is falsely accused of killing his adoptive father, and as a result is thrown into said world below, where he vows revenge and starts a journey to find a way to return to the city above. Now that is a very basic premise of the show. That's like episode 1, because there's a heck of a lot more that happens in the series that adds up on top of that plot, such as the world here being inhabited by people who are able to transform garbage or trash that is near and dear to their heart into unique weapons or abilities that can help them out in battle or doing various other things. Rudo himself has the unique ability to be able to do that to just about any piece of trash that is yearning to kind of be this ultimate that was thrown out prematurely. And so you have also the action of the surface world, as Rudo becomes a very important figure, having come from the world above, which we also find out the world below is not too fond of the people from above because of all the trash that they've thrown down below, essentially polluting this world. Rudo also joins this group that fights these trash monsters. Yeah, there's like these trash beasts that are more formed of all these different things that people have thrown away, and the group itself is called the Cleaners, and you can see where this is going. The basic premise itself is just the starting point to get all these elements into place. But long story short, the end goal here is Rudo wants to go back up to the surface world and get revenge. And you know what? All of that works just fine. It's a fun and unique world that you want to know more about, with interesting characters that you want to follow. And yes, as the category we're talking about mentions, action is the most entertaining thing. Now, I wouldn't say this show is non-stop action, as it does have many elements that it's trying to tackle at once, but whenever there is action, it does not disappoint. Not only that, but it truly does subvert expectations at points as well. Many times I felt I knew exactly how a fight was going to go down, only to be surprised by its conclusion. This isn't a story that's concerned over satisfaction as it is over having spectacle and characters that still have quite a bit to learn. It's a breath of fresh air, excusing the pun here, if the power dynamic may get a bit too tropey at times. For me though, the action works very well for the type of show this is. I really like the animation of the show, even if it's not a style that attracts me personally. This is a gruff and dirty world, and as such, much of the animation follows that same example of being raw and gritty. It gives it style and substance and helps it stand out amongst the pack, especially in the lineup of other nominated shows. The action in particular has great choreography that takes advantage of the unique animation to make each fight a spectacle to see. I also like the punk aesthetic of the drawings throughout the show, though that's something I'll talk about more in like the background art section. All in all, the animation here fits greatly into the world and helps it stand out amongst the pack. I suppose the only negative point here is that they do use the CGI effects on these trash beasts, and while it's not horrendous, it is noticeable. I'm not gonna say that completely ruined my enjoyment of the show. You do notice the contrast between the two styles. Now, as of right now, the first season doesn't focus too much on these trash beasts, even when there is a central focus on one. It's very unique how it's approached, which I won't ruin here. But if the later seasons do have these things more front and center, if you will, I do hope they kind of change up the animation style there, because that will be quite jarring if that's all we're focusing on. Right, what was I saying about punk aesthetic? It's everywhere. Just the character standing in a room or walking through a town has a ton of graffiti artwork in the back. Heck, sometimes the background is more interesting than what's occurring in the scene itself. It gives it a very lived-in feeling, and the surface world is definitely its own unique location versus the city in the sky where the story begins. If I do have to talk about negatives here, it's that whenever the crew does venture out into the wild, away from civilization, the background does start to kind of lose its impact. There's a lot of times where fights will take place in an environment where there's really nothing interesting going on. I think of like this underground area building where, I mean, it essentially feels like a tunnel, and that kind of was disappointing just because you don't have a cool setting, but it is replaced with those fantastic action scenes, as I said before. So you know what, in that sense, the trade-off isn't too bad, as long as we're moving into a more unique fighting style where now that's catching your attention. I don't mind that, but I still think it would have been cool to have some of these action scenes in interesting locations. There's just not a lot of variety in terms of, oh, we're gonna go here that looks completely different from here, that looks completely different from here, and in that sense, there is a little bit of disappointment. If there is one category that I would love to see Gachiakuta take it home, it's in its character designs. First, on a simplistic basis, these characters just look cool. For an action show, to me, that is important. If I don't care about how a character looks, or I think they're just dumb in design, I'm personally not as invested during the action scenes as much. But in the details of their outfits, not only do they each help their individual characters stand out, but as the world is comprised of trash, it's interesting to see what is essentially outfits stitched together or combined to create unique looks that stand apart from the ones in the floating city. Going back into action, once these characters are in fight mode, their eyes start to glow, the weapons that they have like transform, and it only adds to the aesthetic and the appeal of each individual character. There's also moments where certain characters like lose it, like they're in a very traumatic situation, the camera kind of zooms in close and you get this like twisted, distorted view of their face, which again just adds to the style of the show. I'm really looking forward to seeing what other characters are introduced and how their personality mixes with the style and their outfits. I think this is one of the best things the show has going for it. It gives it style, it gives it personality, and for that I'm completely on board with this category. Director Fumihiko Suganoma has a few credits under his belt, such as Shirobako and Train to the End of the World, but overall is still relatively new to the director circle, especially when it comes to action anime like Gachiakuta is. As such, some fans of the source material were nervous about giving him the reins of the series, but from what I can see, he pulled it off nicely. While I haven't read the manga, a lot of fans liked his take on the source material, including amping up the style of the manga itself. There was an interview with Fumihiko where he said he wanted to honor the manga by giving the style of the anime a more hand-drawn feel despite using digital technology. And honestly, again, apart from the trash beasts themselves, I do think he achieves what he set out to do. I do have other complaints about the show overall, which I'm going to talk about in a later section, but overall, I think this is solid work. I do like what he did with this world. I think he brought a very cool punk aesthetic to life in a way that is going to be very appealing to anyone who watches the show. Heck, even if you don't watch the show, I can see just the style of it just being so eye-catching that you'll want to purchase merchandise just because it looks cool on its own. So for that, props to Fumihiko. He did a great job here. I'll be honest, as of right now, I don't think Rudo is all that interesting of a character. He fits the generic typecast that these shonen heroes personify. I thought maybe at first his anger problems were going to be more of a focus or cause more problems than they did, but Apart from one moment that does lead to a nice interaction after, it really isn't all that impactful, as of yet anyway. With how much they've been spelling out that his anger can be destructive, I'm sure there's going to be more development coming. But as of right now, it is underwhelming. Honestly, a lot that he goes through in the first season is him getting angry, maybe having a cool moment, but oftentimes failing at what he's trying to achieve, and then whining about how he hasn't changed. He has at least 3 of those moments throughout, and all I could think of was, good lord, how many times do you have to come to the same epiphany now? He is in a better spot at the end of the season, though I will say his big, oh my god moment is that he realizes he wants revenge and he wants to have fun with his friends. Sure, why not? I mean, look, I'll be honest, I've never liked that whole power of friendship trope in anime. I always think that's kind of silly. Yeah, of course, friends, they're gonna pull you through the tough moments, but spelling it out in this kind of, I don't know, over-the-top silly way, just, I don't know, I've never gravitated towards. So it doesn't appeal to me personally, but I can't say it's bad per se. It's a good lesson to have in terms of wanting fun with your friends. The revenge, I'm sure we'll tackle a little bit later, and there's going to be more character development for Rudo. I am 100% sure of that. Well, 99 unless they fuck up the next season, but as of right now, I just don't think Rudo needs to be in this category. Maybe eventually he will be, but right now, I just don't think there's enough here with them to truly warrant a spot here. Alright, look, I'm gonna take this category to talk about things that I don't like about the show. This isn't to mean that I don't think that it doesn't deserve the nomination in new series. I can't think of where else to list all of these issues that I have with the show, so keep that in mind as I move forward in this section. Firstly, I don't like the overall structure to the show. It's far too by the numbers. Each beat is exactly what you would see in this type of action anime, especially when it involves a lost youth that is trying to find his place in the world. The setting is unique and the characters are interesting, and yes, some of the action does end in unexpected ways, which is why I'm okay with how predictable the story has been thus far. But no, there's nothing new here in terms of structure that you haven't seen a million times before. Second is, the show is already feeling way too bloated. There are so many characters introduced in the first season, all the way up to the last episodes. It's a problem I feel will hopefully remedy itself as the show continues and we do get to spend more time with the individual characters, but for this season, there's just not enough time to spend with all of these, especially because we do have to focus on Rudo, his backstory, his introduction to the world, him finding out what his powers are, him joining the organization, this world that he now has to get used to. There's a lot that the first season has to do. So I think pacing might also end up taking a hit because of that. And so, yeah, I think the bloating is already starting to affect the show overall. But again, hopefully later seasons do remedy that, unless we get a bunch of more character introductions. I'm sure we will, but I just want them to tackle it in a way where we really get to learn about each individual person. It's not just, oh, here's another cool character, which, fine, but you want to learn about the cool characters, right? Speaking of the characters, a lot of them seem overly weak, and I'm not sure if that's by design or not. There are moments where, for plot reasons, certain characters have to get captured or are taken out of the action so the new characters can show what they can do. We see this being done in lots of different anime, which, I've never been a big fan of, but if that's what they gotta do, then fine. But even when we're past all that, a lot of the main cast gets their ass kicked quite often. And again, I'm not sure if that's by design, but it doesn't make me hopeful for future battles in terms of story structure. If all of a sudden these characters are kicking ass for no reason, that's gonna be a problem. Now, if they have to use their smarts to get around situations, I'll be impressed. Yeah, I like that because it makes for better action in my opinion. We'll have to see and wait where the show lands on this in the future, but for right now, I'm very uneasy about the way they're setting things up. Lastly, I think the show has quite a bit of cop-out moments, in my opinion. There's moments where there's like a really hard life lesson that Rudo's gonna have to learn, only for the show to pull out the last minute and go like, haha, just kidding, this is now a comedic moment. And I really don't like those type of things, especially this world's supposed to be like gritty and it's gonna be tough and people die just from trash fucking falling down to the surface world. And yeah, we're not going to talk about like serious moments like that, which I'm not gonna ruin these technically are spoilers, but you know where it's fine, where we're introduced to other people that we don't know anything about, but then like the traumatic thing happens to those characters and it's like, oh man, really traumatic and sad, right? And no, because we don't know anything about that, but you just showed them. Why not do that with someone we've already come to know and care about? So I know I'm being vague here. I'm trying not to spoil it if you haven't seen the show, but yeah, I don't like those cop-out moments. And to even test this further, the show leaves off on a cliffhanger, which again, not gonna ruin it. I already have an idea of how they're going to resolve it and how it's gonna be a just kidding moment once again. We'll see if I'm wrong or if I'm right. And if I am, I will mention it if the next season gets nominated and we get a resolution to it, just to prove my point. But for now, know that I'm setting things up and I'm already seeing a trend of how the show is playing off its life lessons, which, man, it's sad that it's not more impactful in that regard. There are technically 2 openings to Gachiakuta, but we don't talk about the second one. This is the first all the way, which is bizarre in all the right ways. Though I do think it loses points in explaining what the show is about, which I always look for in anime. Like, if I can't show this to someone and they're immediately like, oh, this looks interesting, I want to watch the show, I'm always kind of like, oh yeah, this isn't the best representation of really what the show is about. So yeah, points lost for that one. But I do like the grotesque imagery on display, though the show never really does end up that messed up. So I guess maybe you lose points for maybe leading you astray in that sense as well. The song itself is fine. I mean, it works for what's on display, but it's not a song that I care to listen to much outside the show. And I know. Do I even like the opening with all the negative things I just said? And yes, I do. It just took me some getting used to before I actually got into the groove of it. So, am I angry at its conclusion? No, I probably would have picked something else myself. Score in Gachiakuta is very unique and fits its punk world aesthetic very nicely, with certain tracks even including vocals, which I always appreciate. Taku Isawaki is the man responsible for the score here. The dude has quite a bit of credits under his belt, including Gurren Lagann, Soul Eater, Noragami, and Bungo Stray Dogs. I was looking up what others were saying about the score and found some were comparing it to that of Persona 3 with its hip-hop aesthetic. And then I found out that one of the vocalists on the track is Lotus Juice, who actually does work on Persona music, including Persona 3. Is that coincidence, or did people actually pick up on that? Either way, it just adds to my appreciation of the score here. One of the things I left out about the negative section that I wanted to wait for in this section is talking about how disappointed I was in Enjin's character development. This character is built up to be this badass. This guy is somebody that everybody has faith in. He's the only one that can survive no man's land by himself. There's a different character that's completely infatuated with him, looks up to him any single time he gets praised by him. He goes all gaga, which awesome. I can't wait to see what this character does. And he doesn't really do a whole lot. And that's the disappointing thing. Even towards the end, where I thought for sure he was gonna get his badass moment, he doesn't. Okay, look, actually, to be fair, there is one moment in the show where he sits with Rudo after Rudo loses his cool to essentially talk about what just happened. And that's a nice moment. That's a moment where he truly does feel like a mentor, and I understand what other people started to see in him. That is the only time I truly saw this character being more than what was being shown to us. everything else, from his craftiness to his personality, didn't feel all that unique. And again, I thought for sure if there was one moment that was finally going to show us what he could do, it was in the ending battle. But they didn't even do that. So I'm confused about his inclusion here. If he is a badass, hasn't shown what he can do yet, does that mean he purposefully almost let his entire team die? Or is he not that strong? It's in his mentorship that puts him a level above. I mean, I wouldn't mind the second option, but then why play him up to be a badass? Look, if you know, actually keep it to yourself. I'm sure I'll figure it out eventually. But as of now, I don't think he's ready to be on this list, in this nomination spot. Truthfully, I'd much rather Jabber be here instead. He's an excellent antagonist that is actually badass and crazy in all the right ways. So does Gachiakuta have a chance at Anime of the Year? My conclusion is nope. In fact, I would actually even say this is a bottom 3 contender, and personally, I don't think it's ready to be in this nomination circle at all. Maybe in the future, as the show evolves and grows, we can really see it being honored as an Anime of the Year contender, but I truly don't think it needs to be here as of right now. This truly, for me, is more style over substance. And it's cool. I like the aesthetic. I'm not saying the show is bad. It's a good show. I just think there are so many other worthy anime that could have gotten a mention in Anime of the Year instead. So take that for what it's worth. If you love the show, cool. I'm not saying don't love the show. Just for me, I think this could have been a lot better. It may not be quite as pleasant as I wanted it to be, but Gachiakuta is an anime that doesn't deserve to be tossed out quite just yet. As such, I give it a 3.5 out of 5 with a recommendation to rent it. There's going to be moments that will appeal to just about anyone who gives the show a chance. But there's also going to be moments that show wear and tear, which for a brand new show is somewhat concerning. Check it out and see if you consider the show to be some serious trash or just some straight up garbage. And ladies and gentlemen of the internet, that is all I have for you today. That is now half of the anime done and over with. We've still got 3 more left, plus my predictions video. So yeah, we're pretty much at the halfway point here. How you been liking the reviews? Did you agree with me with Gachiakuta? Do you think it is a good show? Do you think it's disappointing? Am I completely fucking stupid? It's an amazing show. Or do you think I'm way too generous and this show is some real bad trash? Let me know in the comments below. And until tomorrow's video, everybody, like always, stay safe out there and have a good one.